Peace and welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Today, folks, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the January 6th committee investigating the insurrection that happened on January the 6th. A number of new developments in this case. We're going to bring you up to date with that. Also, the fallout of Will Smith's slap to Chris Rock, the Oscar slap. It continues to happen. I'm going to bring you some updates that include Will Smith apologizing and Jada Pinkett Smith emerging from the whole thing, saying a few words. So we'll bring that up to date. And then later, let's talk about the study about black girls being personified, seen as adults. We'll have that conversation. Since we're talking about protecting black girls, well, maybe we can get into some discussion about what's at the root of the fact that black girls are not seen as being girls, but women. We'll have that and a whole lot more. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. We got a lot to get to, so let's jump right in here. First, we're going to talk about what's happening with this committee called the January 6th Committee, which is commissioned to investigate what happened on that fateful day, January 6, 2021, when it was all just falling apart, folks, where we saw numbers of Trump supporters and number of folks from across the country that went to the Capitol for a speech and for a rally that President Trump and his administration had initially called for. And then after that rally, made their way down to the Capitol. And then it's like all hell broke loose. And you remember that day, folks, 5 police officers were injured and were killed. There were a number of injuries of law enforcement officers. Since that time, there have been a number of arrests, folks, of many that had been involved. Now, the Department of Justice and law enforcement agencies have arrested most of these folks based on video of those who are in the Capitol, in the offices, in the Senate chambers, the Senate and the House, and the congressional chambers. I mean, it was just a madhouse, absolute mess. Now, given that time, we're starting to see each and every day more and more behind the scenes activity were happening as a result that led up to the January 6th insurrection. And a lot of it is pointing to the fact that former President Donald Trump may have played a huge part in either helping to organize or at least knowing that violence would be the outcome on that fateful day. Liz Cheney, who is a part of the, congressional Congresswoman Liz Cheney, had pointed out in a recent interview that the president was warned, that the president and his team were warned on the morning of January the 6th that there might be a violent outcome as a result of bringing all of those folks together and as a result of his direction to stop the election from being certified. I want to bring in my culture crew members today. Of course, we are joined by Iman Heath, who is an entrepreneur and activist, and Lise Winnie, who is the host of Millennial Anonymous podcast, bringing them both in to talk about this because there have been a lot of updates. Iman, Winnie, Lise, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's always good to talk to you, sisters.
Same.
Hey, y'all.
All right. So let's look at what's going on with this whole situation because this is more. I mean, it seems like each and every day the January 6th committee is running against the clock. They know that there is a possibility, Lise, that the Republicans may be taking over the Congress, both House and Senate, come November. They're trying to get all of these witnesses done, all these witnesses in. They have already interviewed over 500. I think it's like 550 witnesses, a little bit more at this point. They're calling on a number of people to give their account of what happened there that day. Some of the big names that come up on the list of those who are going to be appearing before the committee: Jared Kushner, who is the son-in-law of President Trump. He is married to Ivanka Trump. He was coming back from Saudi Arabia on that day to Washington, D.C., and he did not know. Apparently, that's the word is, that he really wasn't around and did not know that this was going to happen. Virginia Jenny Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, she's expected to appear as well. She is the one that's responsible for sending these crazy text messages to President Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, saying that something needs to be done to stop President Biden from getting into the seat of the presidency of the United States. Also, a couple of Trump aides, Scavino and Navarro, both had been charged. Dan Scavino, Peter Navarro, they both had been charged with criminal contempt as a result of them not wanting to say anything or to testify in front of this committee. So we're seeing all of these things happening. Plus, let's not forget the big doozy, over 7 hours of missing calls, logs, missing calls to the White House from President Trump, even though we know that there were a number of people that the president talked to earlier in that day and late in that evening. But the committee is saying roughly between 11 or 11:30 to about 6:45, 7 o'clock that evening, there have been no calls as a result, no calls from the president or from the White House, no interaction, no communication. And a lot of these calls, a lot of this came out of the fact that there were 11 pages of the White House presidential diary, which serves as a record of the daily activities, and the phone logs show that President Trump had with at least 8 people the morning of January 6th, and then he spoke to 11 people that night, but nothing between 11 and 7. No notation, no calls between 11:17 a.m. Eastern Time, 6:54 p.m. Eastern Time. And that was according to the Post and according to CBS. A lot of missing calls, Lise. A lot of missing time. I mean, you mean to tell me the president is seeing all of this? The whole country is seeing all of this? The whole world is seeing all of this? And during the time that all of this is transpiring and is happening, no calls were made from President Trump. No calls were made to the White House. There's speculation, and this is one of the theories that the January 6th committee is looking at, saying that the president may have used an aide's phone or another phone, a burner phone, to make calls to various lawmakers and to make calls to the people in the Capitol, so that way it won't be noted. But that's a big gap.
This is all convenient, and a whole work shift of just no calls at all on this particular day. It just so happened to be this day and time. There are no calls, no records of calls. You just happen to be flying from another country while it was happening. Every detail you just said is convenient as hell that it happened during that day, during that time.
Right.
I think this is just what Trump was able to do. Like, he was able to get away with this stuff when he was in the White House. We all know that he was on the phone at some point within those 7-8 hour time frame. And he has, if I'm not mistaken, used a personal phone before, which is kind of ironic because with the emails, all we hear is about Hillary Clinton's emails and using their personal email. Like, that's all we lock her up, all of that. And then he's using the same, probably like a personal device, more than likely. We don't exactly know, but we know that this sounds suspicious. This is very reminiscent. I think we talked about this before we got on here, of Watergate, where they broke into the DNC. This sounds very similar to that, where you have them trying to get rid of all of this evidence. And so I'm interested to see how the Trump supporters feel about this, because you have this. How do you explain this? How do you rationalize this as a Trump supporter, that you have all of this evidence that's just gone? Not to mention things were clogged down toilets, papers. it just sounds like a cover up.
Oh yeah, it sounds like a huge, huge cover up. Which, Iman, when we look at the situation, like the significance of this situation, okay, all right, all of these other pieces is one thing, but not to have the phone calls, like you want the American people, you want the a lawmakers committee to truly believe that for nearly 8 hours you weren't communicating with anybody on one of the most fateful days in American history. You weren't calling nobody. You ain't even calling on your children. I mean, you weren't calling nobody.
It doesn't make sense. And to even put it in a better perspective, I'm sure we've all have been punished as a child, couldn't watch something, couldn't see something. You ever heard of turn TV off when your mother's about to walk in, but she touched the back of the TV is hot, but you still tell her that you weren't watching it? So how's the TV hot, yet you weren't watching? How is it everyone was at work that day? Everyone was in attendance, but for 7 hours straight, an entire work shift. You mean to tell me is there's no evidence? Make it make sense. Then those text messages,
from Ginny Thomas,
from Miss Thomas, it gives your intent. It gives up the intent, if you ask me. Like it's there in our face, but they're trying to cover it up. It don't make sense, Farajii.
It doesn't.
It's hot. The back of the television is hot.
The back of the TV is hot. That is true. That is true. Here's something that I think that we should also consider in this whole piece. When you look at what the judge said, and I want to post that if we could post that quote from the judge. This is Judge David Carter, who wrote that Trump likely committed felony obstruction. He said, quote, based on the evidence, the court finds it more likely than not that President Trump corruptly attempted to obstruct the joint sessions of Congress on January 6, 2021.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I know that he's like, and I understand words. I understand semantics, right? But when you're saying something like based on the evidence, more likely than not, that's all like semantics. That's pretty much saying we have strong evidence to believe that the president did it. But I don't know if this judge doesn't. He seemed like he didn't want to necessarily go in that space, Lise. Like he didn't want to. He didn't want to go all the way and say, "Man, this dude committed some felonies. This man broke the law."
He can't.
But he's like, more than likely. It's like one of those things. Like more than likely, you know what I mean? Like wink, wink. He committed a felony obstruction.
All of the pieces of the puzzle are there. There's something that's not right. I mean, we can't say without him being, in front of a judge and going through the legal process, but all the pieces are there. When you look at, speaking about Ginny Thomas, it's interesting to see how many people that were around him and her just were so blatantly ignorant. Like, why do you not know that any of this stuff? I just want to know, like, why wouldn't you think that people would have access to this? This is something that can be found. This is something that can be seen. And then to have her be the wife of a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
And will he recuse himself? I don't know, because Mitch McConnell said, I have complete, support in him. I believe that he can be part. I'm like, can he, when your wife could potentially be wrapped up in some legal jargon and mumbo jumbo? This doesn't make any sense at all. And then when it comes back to Trump not having any of the time, I think it was like 7 hours, you say, of time that's missing. His daughter was there. So I guess at this point, they're trying to figure out, and he was trying to hide the fact that they knew he was warned repeatedly that there would be violence, and people were contacting him inside of saying, hey, this is some stuff going on. You need to stop this. Even his daughter, Ivanka, allegedly was with him that day and repeatedly asked him to try to say something to stop it.
I've heard that.
There is so many smoking guns in this scenario that I don't know how Trump comes out of this one unscathed.
That's a great point. And I want us to let's put some historical context on this. The fact that President Nixon, when he dealt with the Watergate scandal, you were talking about literally 18 and a half minutes long. That infamous gap in Nixon's tapes were just 18 and a half minutes long, folks. That's the gap compared to 7 hours and some change.
A work shift, not including your break.
President Trump wasn't at work for 7 hours and some change, folks, during one of the most significant days in American history.
And let's not the lack of the response, though. When the outrage and the uproar started happening, the lack of the response. I just want to say, being here in Baltimore, the National Guard, how fast they had CNN down here and all the everybody from every state, every police station, this district, in the local area on North Avenue. So you telling me a federal building is being I'm gonna say rioted. I'm gonna say it's a riot, call it what it is.
Yeah.
Y'all call us thugs. When those thugs were going over those barricades and climbing up the side of the walls as if this is G.I. Joe Part 3, where was the response? Where was the law enforcement, the not gentle hand of law enforcement, not the white privilege of law enforcement, but as if those were black people going over those walls? As if it was black people going over those barricades, where was the response? Yeah. All the stuff that's melting in this pot points to, in my opinion, Trump knew what he was doing.
And one of the big things that I saw, ladies, and in reading up and just keeping updated about the situation, that they're saying, and CNN reported that this thing is so widespread, like it gets, as one writer for CNN said, it gets deeper and darker by the day, right? Like in terms of the level of conspiracy, because you couldn't be able to pull off what we saw on January the 6th. Now, even though it was an unsuccessful attempt in terms of stopping the certification of votes, even though it was an unsuccessful attempt in terms of even making sure that the lives of certain lawmakers would be preserved. The fact is, there was a whole process, a whole conspiracy that had to be established to make this day happen. From the time, look, even up to them announcing a couple of days before January 6th happened, January the 4th, couple of days, Steve Bannon, one of President Trump's closest advisors, and a known white supremacist and a known man that has done some corrupt things, putting it out January 4th, January 3rd, pumping it. Be there in D.C. Man, it's going to be a doozy. Now, nobody talks like this about no damn rally. If this is supposed to be a political rally where you just hear the president speak, firing up his base, that's one thing. Nobody says, man, this is going to be the one. Nobody pumps up no rally.
You can't, and then you can't publicly speak about it on social media. That's number one. And two, don't even ask me how I know. But you can't even try to formulate these type of demonstrations on social media without it getting some type of recognition. So where or what platform or where were y'all talking or speaking to be able to do this? And it's not like it was just people from DC who were acting a fool, showing their true colors, but people from other states along the East Coast were there as well. So where or how did y'all come up with this type of communication? Did y'all write letters? Did you send pigeons? Did you have pagers? Did you have two-ways? Something. Because it was not on social media. Because I promise, as much as I'm on social media and my peers, it wasn't seen or heard of.
No.
So what space or who allowed y'all the space to even to speak in code to get to the point to this demonstration?
Well, you know what, and I to get to that point, Iman, I think that you would have to look at the big companies. You got to go back and look at the data from Google. You have to go back and look at the data from Meta. You would have to go back and look at the data from these big companies, right? Or because a lot of these smaller platforms are supported by these bigger companies, by these bigger tech companies, right? And we already know, Lise, that Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all of these platforms were used to organize and to rally folks to get to DC. They were used as part of the plan to disseminate information. That's why President Trump, by him being off of Twitter and Facebook, was probably, and I know many people don't think so, but I think that was probably the biggest blow to him, because he doesn't have an audience that he can just spit out lies to, right? He doesn't have the mass appeal. He tried to do it with his from the desk of President Trump memo, which he just sent out a memo saying he made a hole in one. This dude is okay. You sent out memo you sent out this long memo to describe you got a hole in one in golf. I just want to let people know the full story. I made a hole in one today. Who gives a damn? But then you also tried to create this this social media platform. You know, this Truth Social, which, you know, went down in flames. You know what I mean? They had a lot of problems. So you have these platforms allowed him to be used in a way to organize and rally. And so if you want to see some other stuff, I think you would have to pull at least the data from Google, Facebook, and other places, because that's going to give you some indication of where this situation is.
You will, but again, Mark Zuckerberg lives on Capitol Hill. Like, he stays up there. He's been, they talked to him multiple times. And of course, you can't impede upon people's rights in order to communicate. Now, you also have to think that, yes, a lot of this stuff happened on Facebook, but a lot of it happened in the shadows. So like on 4chan and places like that, where you can say whatever you want. Yeah. And no one is really monitoring that. Yeah. So then that's where they were able to get a lot of this stuff together and communicate, especially a lot of the QAnon supporters. That's where they live at. So when you say Trump being off of social media was the worst, I mean, was the best thing, I actually think it was the worst, because now you took a lot of these people and you put them in the shadow. So now they're doing this on platforms you can't see. So will we know when another because when January 6th came, we didn't quite think the mayonnaise would be out the jar, but we knew something was about to happen. Whereas now, would we? Like, if they could really plan
this. What is 4chan? 4chan? What did you say?
It's like a back page where it's like on the black web. You don't, it's not tracked. You don't know who's saying what. You don't know where it's coming from. It's on the dark web, is what it is. Yeah. The dark web. That's where it is. So you can
expect the least. Expect the least. There it is.
That is. So let me just share with you a couple of folks what people are saying as we are having this conversation. I'm going to wrap up in a moment. But JP said, if the cops got there timely, what would they have done? No way you have enough. Did we want the cops to shoot the protesters on the Capitol steps? The Capitol wasn't ready for the insurrection. They got rubber bullets. They have tear gas, which they did use. I'm not going to say they just opened up the door to Capitol. Tear gas, but they definitely didn't shoot no rubber bullets. The person, even the police officers that were squeezed, and if y'all haven't, I forgot the name of the documentary about this. Netflix was showing it for a minute. But if you saw the footage of the police officers who were squeezed in that revolving door, getting crushed in the revolving door, not one shot was fired.
Not an shot.
Not one shot was fired, right?
Nope.
And I think that was, I don't know whether it was strategic or not, but not one shot was fired until they killed the protester. When she tried to walk up into, she broke a window and she got shot in her chest.
Now, if it was a bunch of black folk, y'all know daggone well the story. It would have been body bags all over those steps.
I got a better one. I got a better one. If they were Arabic, they wouldn't even have been able to get anywhere near there.
No.
Not even close to grounds.
If they would have been terrorists when they was 15 blocks from the White House. Yeah. Not even close.
No. And if you see a group of people, and I mean, again, I gotta get the name of that documentary. But if you saw, they showed that the protesters, some of them, like the rally was still going on while some were at the rally, and then others started walking down the Capitol. As soon as President Trump said, and here's the thing, folks, you can't forget this part. The president said, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'm gonna be right there with you."
Y'all ain't see him walk nowhere. You knew that was.
I'm gonna be right there with you, and everybody, and we're gonna we're going to, he tried to put it in some flowery way of not saying that he's going to disrupt it, but we're going to stand for what we know is right.
And
but he said he was going to walk with you. He was going, and it was going to be peaceful. He kept saying, we're going to do this peacefully. Trump.
The documentary is 4 hours at the Capitol.
Huh?
4 hours at the Capitol. That's the name of the documentary. 4 hours at the Capitol.
Oh, yep, the 4 hours at the Capitol. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. 4 hours at the Capitol. As we wrap this up, here's another part about this, and I think to your point, Lisa, of smoking guns. I can see smoking guns all over the place. The place looks mad, dusty, and smoky for me, but I guess you got to have like all the evidence in place. Representative Mo Brooks of Alabama, he repeated his claim even as recent as last week on Thursday, saying the president approached him to work to rescind the 2020 election, remove Joe Biden from office, and install him in his place. This is what the man said. He said, quote, "The president has asked me to rescind the election of 2020. He always brings up, we've got to rescind the election. We got to take Joe Biden down and put me in now." And then when he was asked if the president still says that to him, Brooks says, yes. Yes, he still says that today. Come on, man. Come on. What?
Here's
my take. Here's my take, y'all. If Trump shows up on the election, on the ballot come 2024, we need to have a response to that. And and if they're talking about we need to vote, we need to have a serious response to that. Because there's no way in the world, with all of this evidence pointing to him and his people, with all of this madness coming up and being revealed each and every day, that you should let that man anywhere on the ballot in any state of the United States of America. If he's on the ballot, his application to be on the ballot should be absolutely denied. And I said this before, and I'm going to keep saying this. If the Biden-Harris administration allows that to happen, that's a slap in the face. Don't talk to black folks or anybody about democracy. Don't talk to us about civic engagement. Don't talk to us about justice. Don't talk to us about nothing. If that man's name is on the ballot come 2024 and people have an opportunity to vote him back into office with no consequences, no repercussions, then you should not be surprised if people don't participate in this year's election. Don't be surprised. You should not be surprised
at all. And don't be surprised and upset if another whatever building or establishment may get burnt down when it gets to those points, when it gets to those results, because we are going to get tired eventually. I hope it's soon. As a whole,
yeah,
it's going to come. It's hell.
And look, Janae checked in on our page. She said, they will do a write-in campaign. Don't sleep. If they allow him to write in, if by 2024 he not sitting or locked up, banned, something. If he's allowed to be written in, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't stop a write-in if a joker writes him in.
That would be history. I don't ever see them locking up a former United States president. I think we are asking for them to shoot for the moon.
No. He may not be locked up. He shouldn't be on the ballot. Okay, let's start with low-hanging fruit. Don't put him on the ballot. Okay. Don't allow him to be on the ballot in any state. On any state. If he's on the national ballot, he shouldn't even be allowed to get on stage to debate nobody.
He shouldn't even be allowed to campaign whatsoever. Like, it shouldn't be at all.
Not one campaign dime. Yeah, if that is and I'm saying black and white, poor, rich, all of us in this country should be like, you know what? We're done.
But that money though, Farajii, that money speaks. Let's not forget, Trump is a great businessman. Let's not forget, Trump has money and stakes in a lot of things that us average Joes do not and will not see.
Trump is a great salesman.
I'm sorry, salesman. Yes. My fault. Great salesman. But he has money to be able to pull some cards.
I don't even think he got that much. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's what I'm saying. Look, let me tell you something. If you look at how millionaires and billionaires roll, they always want to remind you of what they got. You said it, Iman. He's a great salesman. He's like P.T. Barnum, you know what I mean? A Barnum and Bailey circus. He likes to give you the show, but he don't like to talk too much about the business, right? He loves the show, but he don't talk about the business. I don't think he has that much money. I remember Forbes saying questioning him like, is he really a billionaire? You know what I mean? You got people writing about, look, you have people that write about other people's money that are questioning how much money Trump has. Now, not to say he doesn't have any money. I'm just saying, I don't think, and this is not just of recent. Ever since Donald Trump came out as a businessman, and I can remember back to the 80s and 90s, there's always been a cloud of suspicion and doubt about how much money he really had. That's always been there. Nobody can really tell you. Nobody can be like, he's a billionaire without certainty. You can go to Jeff Bezos. You can say Warren Buffett, right? You can say a lot of Bill Gates. You know they got money. But when it comes to Donald Trump, it'd be like, question mark. It'd be like Facebook. It'd be like a Facebook post that'd be like,
he got said some things. Like privilege equation.
You know, because Trump, it take a lot of money, probably billions, to stay that orange. To buy that makeup, that's a special kind of makeup that he got to get. So that probably requires a lot of money. But still, like, I mean, I could see it. Like, have you had a Trump steak lately? Have you gone to the Taj Mahal? That's why there's always doubt with him.
He's always hustling. He's always hustling his name, and a lot of the properties that he don't own. A lot of the properties are in jeopardy of being repossessed. He can keep the name. He sells his name. That's one of the things that he does. He sells the name to put them on buildings. But in terms of owning stuff, you know what I mean? Like, his brand is the Trump name. That was before he became president. Now it might not be that strong. So we will see how this whole situation turns out. Folks, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's switch gears. Let's talk about the fallout of the Oscar slap. Will Smith has officially apologized. We'll show you what that apology looks like. Jada Pinkett Smith has something to say, and I got some other elements. But let me just make this clear, folks. We ain't going to keep talking about this all week. We are not talking about this all week. We're going to have this conversation today, and then that's going to be the end of it unless there's another dramatic development. But we're going to bring you up to date on everything since that fateful moment at the Oscars. So stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, it is the second day since the fallout of the Oscar slap where actor and superstar Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, one of the hosts for the 94th Oscars celebration. And the fallout continues to happen, folks. Of course, yesterday there were a number of people that tuned in and, more importantly, just have been talking about this issue. And I have to say this, and I want to bring my culture crew back, Iman, Heath, who is an activist and entrepreneur, Lise Winnie, host of a Millennials Anonymous podcast. Ladies, I got to say, I don't know if your timeline is like mine, but it is so noisy. And I'm saying, I ain't even got my phone sound up. I'm just talking about the amount of posts, the amount of videos that I'm seeing about this issue. It is it's like noisy. And I don't know if anybody else is feeling it.
I've been crying laughing since it happened.
Like I just want to just like throw my phone. I'm like, okay. Let me say this at the outset. If you feel so passionate about this issue, there should be an increase in the number of volunteers and supporters of organizations and programs in your respective cities that addresses the issue of violence in the Black community and domestic violence. We should see, like in Baltimore, we have Safe Streets, we have the We Are Us movement. Their numbers should be exploding. If you are that passionate about Black men smacking other Black men, violence not being the answer, we should see violence prevention programs. Their numbers should be off the chart by the end of this week.
Well, how about this?
By the end of April,
all of that.
We should not be hearing about Black men killing other Black men, or see at least a decline, in Black men abusing Black women. I mean, there should be some significant change, because the amount of chatter that I'm seeing, that I'm just like, okay, I get the point. The amount of chatter is unbelievable about this. And the amount of violence is not the answer. Of course not, violence is not the answer. But I think we also got to understand, we live in a violent country, in a violent society, right? We know that, and a lot of Black people, unfortunately, our way of life is violent, whether you're talking about policy, or whether you're talking about police, or whether you're talking about each other. We live in communities of violence. So if you're advocating not to be violent, then, and you got that same energy, keep that same energy and help to stop the violence in wherever you are. But it's so much chatter. It's hard for us to really have these very important conversations. And everybody is like, oh, I got a platform, I got something to say. And that's all well and good, because everybody is entitled to their own opinion. but it has to lead to somewhere. I'm seeing so many strong responses to this moment that it's like, okay, then what are we going to do about it? Because this is just not about an Oscar. This is not just about two successful black men. If this is about, this might be a part of it, might be respectability politics, as they call it, where like, well, we shouldn't have done it. It shouldn't have been done on stage.
I'm going to interject right there. I'm going to interject right there. That's a problem with us. It's a lot of narratives and perspectives of what should have been or shouldn't have been. But my issue and concern with blacks is this whole, it shouldn't have been done at the Oscars. This isn't the BET Awards. So what you're saying is, we shouldn't be respectable Negroes amongst each other, be respectable Negroes for approval of whites? No. It shouldn't, our behavior, it shouldn't be, oh, we done got set back a few decades with that one. No. That it shouldn't, our behavior shouldn't be concerned of how white people receive us. It shouldn't be. Why are we still trying to put ourselves in this box of being the respectable Negro? Now, granted, we all know within the culture of blacks, we've seen somebody get slapped before when they known daggone well they shouldn't have said what they had said. Now, granted, I didn't think the joke was offensive, even though I can understand what was offensive about it. But even as comedians, you joke on people. You get joked on sometimes. Like it's we know this. So it's a lot of different variables for it. But for me, black people, let that whole respectable Negro thing go. Let it go. We'll smack Chris. Okay, let's move on. Oh, we'll never get invited to the Oscars again. Oh, well, to hell with their approval. Why do we need white people's approval so bad? They saw black people act up for once. Okay, and why do we care how they feel about us? It don't matter. We don't need that validation for anything. We are the culture, but that's a whole nother conversation.
We are the culture. We are the culture. I want to say this, and then at least you look like you got something to say.
Very quiet.
I know you've been quiet, Lisa. And you know what? I'm a little nervous. I'm gonna just keep it real. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm a little nervous. All right, let me just share with you first and foremost, folks. Now that we got the preface of that conversation out, let's get into the book of this situation. Will Smith has officially apologized to Chris Rock. What Will said, and he posted this on his Instagram, violence in all of its form is poisonous and destructive. My behavior at last night's Academy Awards was unacceptable and inexcusable. Jokes at my expense are a part of the job, but a joke about Jada's medical condition was too much for me to bear, and I reacted emotionally. I would like to publicly apologize to you, Chris. I was out of line and I was wrong. I am embarrassed and my actions were not indicative of the man I want to be. There is no place for violence in a world of love and kindness. He also went on to say, I would also like to apologize to the Academy, the producers of the show, all the attendees, and everyone watching around the world. I would like to apologize to the Williams family and my King Richard family. I deeply regret that my behavior has stained what has been an otherwise gorgeous journey for all of us. I am a work in progress. Sincerely, Will. That's what he said. Now, some people have a problem with him even pointing out, even putting out this statement. Some people are saying, hey, they don't believe him. Lise, what's your take?
Well, I mean, I have a different stance on this altogether. I think,
Lisa, if your stance is that different, I'm gonna be blown away. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, it's not that different from like everybody, but it's different from kind of the conversation that we've been having here. Kind of on the stance of respectability politics, which I've heard. And the thing that just kind of, it irks me a little bit because it's not necessarily, why does it have to be that we're doing this for white people? Why don't black people reserve that same level of respect where you don't disrespect me and put me in an uncomfortable situation of just being black? Why does it have to be whiteness? Why are we not owed to not have that? Also, when you look at what happened, we started to see a lot of projection. A lot of people started project, because we all do it, projecting their feelings onto the situation. I think we looked way too deep into this whole scenario and people just they wrote thesis about what they think was going on and the trauma that Will faced. And like we dug way too deep. Trauma, and I work in the mental health space now, and I speak to mental health professionals all day long. One of the things that one of them told me is that trauma is never an excuse for you to do anything. Your trauma doesn't excuse you to hurt me. That is not an excuse. It is a reason why it happened, not an excuse to. At no point should we do that. And then when I see a lot of people saying with Black women, it hurts me so much because Black women are so unprotected. We don't even know what protection looks like because this is not it. And I'll let you go ahead, but this is not it.
Well, Lise, I am so happy that you bring these 2 points up. All right, I am look at she can adjust in her chair, ready to rock and roll.
I'm ready. Let's debate. Let's debate.
No, I first and foremost, I want you to repeat what you said about trauma, that trauma is not an excuse. I want us to really like key in on that. Talk to us about that. Say that one more time, please.
Yes, trauma is not an excuse to hurt other people. Trauma is a reason to, not an excuse to do. It's a reason why, not an excuse to. So I want people to understand that. It may give you context of why, okay, he may have done this because he was hurt because of that, or she did this because she was hurt because of that. It doesn't excuse the behavior. So at no point should you use your trauma to hurt other people. So trauma is a reason why, not an excuse to.
Right, because essentially, if you're traumatized, yes, it's behind the action, but you can't just if you keep hurting people, you can't just be like, I'm traumatized though.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to make light of it, but I'm just saying, just like, and I know people are like that. They're like, I'm traumatized though, but it's like, bro, either you get some help and change and shift the power from your trauma to your present life, or it's like, I don't know, but I totally understand it. Now, you're saying that in terms of the protection of Black women, that this is not protection.
No. And it's, like I said, it's so sad to watch because we think that it is. Actually, I think with looking at this is that this didn't have anything to do with Jada at all. This had to do with Will's ego, because if this really had to do with Jada, he didn't even call her by name. He called her my wife, which makes her almost like property to him. He did not call her by name. This was
Will's what a lot of people do, though.
Yes, but
when I call my wife my wife. I mean, she calls me her husband. I mean, that's what people do.
Right. But in that moment, if this was specifically about Jada, you mentioned Jada. You say, don't put my wife's name. What is your wife's name? You call her by name and say, you do not talk about Jada Smith anymore. You put a title on her name. That is Jada. Don't say Jada name anymore.
But I'm gonna push back on that one. I'm gonna disagree with you on that one. I'll disagree with you. Like, of course, we can have respectful disagreements, but
right.
For our children, that's my son. If you disrespect my son, I'm gonna say you disrespected my son. I'm not gonna be like, oh, you disrespected, and then say his name, or you disrespected my daughter, and thing like. No, that's my son, and it's not. I don't think any one of us that uses that language, we're saying your property, but that there is a sense that you belong to me because of the commitment that we have made. In the instance of your children, you belong to me because you came from me.
They're your children. That's not necessarily belong to. You gave birth to. You were there to train them up. You don't own them.
You don't own them.
Right. You don't own them. The fact of the wife or not saying wife, I think is only part of what the context of it. I think when he did that, it was also the tone. Say her name, but then he also got up. What did it do to his wife that he was protecting? We no longer had that conversation. We were not talking about hair and how much hair is important to Black women and why this shouldn't be and why it's such value to us. We stopped talking about that. All we did was talk about Will Smith. That was it. So
I don't know if that's. And Iman, what's your take on that? Because I've seen tons of this. A lot of this conversation is about hair, but a lot more part of this conversation is about her medical condition of having alopecia.
So number one, I had no idea she had alopecia until
I didn't either.
the other night. That's one. So maybe, hopefully, Chris didn't know, and it was just. I thought maybe she was standing up for women who lost their hair. Like, I didn't know she was suffering from any type of condition. That's one. Number two, I completely understand both perspectives. However, I would want my husband to slap the hell out of whoever about whatever when it comes to me. That's my perspective. Now, I wouldn't say it's protection in a way because she wasn't being physically harmed. Maybe from her facial expression, you could tell that she was emotionally upset, or it got to her emotionally.
Yeah.
And I guess he was protecting her emotions, I guess. So it's I'm on the fence. I get both sides. But if my husband, whomever he is, if he's going to be on either side, be a will. I'm sorry, be a will.
But
So would you want it to? And I mean, look,
my edges or something if they were missing, but they're not.
Right. But would you want your husband to respond in a public forum like the Oscars? If you were at, and it might not be the Oscars, it could be any dinner, it can be any public situation. Would you have wanted your husband to respond like that?
It's hard.
If somebody made a joke about you,
the G.I. Jane 2 joke, like, I understood it because number one, G.I. Jane, the movie, the woman depicted in the movie, she's a strong
Demi Moore.
one.
Yeah,
she's intelligent.
Yeah.
She can fight all that. So
yeah,
like, I wouldn't have taken offense to it. Like, the offensive part is what threw me off. But then you throw alopecia in there, what a lot of us did not know of. Then it's like, all right, I get it. But at the same time, I just didn't see how that protected her.
I think we're reading into this because we've all said stuff about people. Do we deserve to be slapped? At some point, there is a line that needs to be crossed. When I'm saying that this is not protection of Black women, this was a stupid decision. This was a poor choice. We cannot keep defending poor choices and saying we want our communities to be better. This was a poor choice. We have to remember when I was on here 2 weeks ago, the accountability piece. You've got to hold him accountable for the things that he did. Because at the end of the day, he did slap another Black man on television. He slapped, that was embarrassing not only to his family, but Chris Rock's family. Like, he has daughters. His daughters, if I'm not mistaken, they were there. It's a whole situation that we have to look at. This is not protection because at the end of the day, there's men sitting in prison right now. They can say, I did what I did because of my family. It doesn't excuse the behavior. And it puts the family at a detriment. Oh, no, I'm not saying you said it puts the family at a detriment.
Here's the other part about this. We're going to take a quick pause because then, once we come back, I'm going to share with you what Jada Pinkett Smith had to say about this. But I think that we're talking from, a couple of different perspectives. One is we're talking from after the fact. We're talking from a logical perspective. What Will apologized for was being emotional. And I think all of us can at least relate to the time, to a moment where we were emotional, that if somebody said something that you misinterpret or you took the wrong way, you probably would have responded in a very dishonorable way, right? Like, there are a couple of things you don't talk about, especially to a grown man and his family. You don't talk about a person's mother. You remember back in the day, somebody said something about your mom, you ready to go to war with them. They got a game called Dirty Dozens. They got a game called Dirty Dozens. And basically, they're cracking jokes about your mom. And boys used to play this all the time until somebody took it too far. I was with your mom last night. Pow! Somebody gets knocked in the face. Right? No, I'm serious, right? That's a part of the culture within the Black community.
But should it?
Where we make fun about, we know in the Black community, if you make fun about somebody's mother, if you're talking to a grown man and you make fun of somebody's wife, on their children, family is off limits. Like, if somebody have a problem with my politics or my view of things, that's fine. You can come at me. But if you come at me at my wife, you say something about my children, you're crossing a line. And I think that's something that we forget, that those things are still a part of our makeup as being members of the Black community, that we still carry that even as adults. Ladies, I'm going to give y'all, we're going to continue the conversation. We got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more of the aftermath, the fallout of the Oscar slap. I'm going to share with you what Jada Pinkett said. I'm going to share with you what the Academy is talking about, possibly revoking or taking away the award that Will Smith had earned. And then I'm also share with you, well, what is the next step on how do we protect Black women? What does that actually look like? We'll have that conversation up next. So stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome to the show, the second hour. We're continuing our conversation talking about the fallout of the Oscar slap with actor Will Smith and comedian Chris Rock. And we wanted just to bring you some of the latest updates around this conversation. First, of course, we showed you that Will Smith has officially apologized to Chris Rock and to the Oscar production team, to the Academy, to the those who were there on Oscar night, on Sunday night. To everybody. He wanted to apologize to everybody, saying that his behavior was inexcusable. Now, as we talk about this, I want to share with you what Jada Pinkett Smith has put out, because she was at the center of this whole thing. She was the reason why. Check this out. Look what Jada had said. Very simple. Very simple. This is a season for healing, and I'm here for it. Very, very simple. Not going into the details, not talking about what she talked about on the ride home and all of those things, not doing a IG live video or anything. She said, I'm here for, this is a season of healing. I'm here for it. Let's bring back our culture crew, Iman Heath, activist and entrepreneur, and Lise Winnie, host of Millennials Anonymous podcast that can be heard on all podcast streaming platforms. Ladies, she came out with a very simple statement. She's here for the healing. She's trying to move past it.
She's here for the ratings. She's here for the viewers. I'm sorry. Part of my conspiracy theory community is saying that the slap was fake, but we're going to move on from that. But this slap, right? Negroes was not watching the Oscars. I didn't even know the Oscars was even coming on or was on until the whole Will smack, right?
Wow.
Now your response, lack thereof, we can save this piece of entertainment for the Red Table Talk.
Mm-hmm.
Viewers for me is for the viewers. She.
So you think that's what? Do you think that she's setting it up for that?
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Farajii, guess what? I haven't tuned into a Red Table Talk since
the entanglement talk.
Since the entanglement. So now.
Yeah.
Now that we back in hit. Now that she's back in headlines. Me personally, I'm gonna tune in. Mm-hmm. This is great bait. This is great bait. She's doing phenomenal.
Lise, what do you take from Jada's message?
I think she did the best she could do in this situation. Because again, like I said, I don't think that had anything to do with her. It was more Will. Jada can't make Will do anything. And emotions or no emotions, he's 53 years old. You can make it. They were just on the red carpet last week, and they had to deal with, or not last week, like 2 weeks ago, was Laverne Cox brought up entanglement. He didn't say anything. As a matter of fact, they smiled and walked away. We know he can do it, so it's not that he can't. But I think she did the best thing that she could do. She kept it simple. She didn't choose sides because, again, she understands that both things can be true. The joke the joke really wasn't that funny, and it could be offensive to people. And her husband was wrong, so she knows that two things can be true at the same time. I think this is the best thing she could have said.
Yeah, I mean, there was a writer for CNN. He posted a piece called, what is it called? Like, if what Will Smith is wrong doesn't make Chris Rock right. Like there were a couple of things that just went wrong in the situation. But what,
if Chris Rock would have responded with a smack back or however,
oh my God,
then
Chris needs to be commended for what he did. Because, as a matter of fact, if you listen to the Dana Carvey podcast, Chris Rock was on there, and he actually said he was afraid to get angry because he had an incident when he was young. He let people walk all over him because he's afraid to be angry. He actually had an incident when he was younger where he hit somebody with bricks to the point where they were severely injured.
Wow!
Because they picked on him.
And look, let me just tell you,
to get angry.
Let me just tell you. When you read, and folks, if you haven't listened or if you haven't read Will Smith's book, Will, that just came out, he tells you in his book, and it's so funny that you said that, Lise, because in his book, he said that when he was a child, he often saw himself as being a coward, right? He was often, that's how he thought of himself. And he said that when he saw his mother being hit by his father, at 9 years old, when his mother was hit so hard in the head by his father that she collapsed and started coughing up blood, he got so angry with himself because he said that he felt like he disappointed his mom because he couldn't defend her. And check this out. He said, and every achievement after that would speak to was his way of apologizing to his mom for not standing up for her when his father did wrong by her.
So again, this was not about Jada. This was grandstanding. This was about him. Like,
I don't know if it was grandstanding because also I don't know if it was grandstanding because if you remember in his speech, his acceptance speech, he said that I'm ending my life where I feel like I have to protect everything that's important to me. I have to protect my family. He said when he said that he had to protect, like in his role, King Richard, he had to protect. He's becoming a protector. So I'm gonna just let people take it as how you want to interpret that. But I think that if you watch his speech, it's about 6 minutes long. If you watch his speech, you will understand where his mind is.
I've watched it and I saw something completely different. Because it's still his perspective. No one called. When you're in therapy, they will tell you, you look back at you. He thought of himself as a coward. No one else said that. So when he's saying as a protector, this is all in him. So when it's still, this is about him and him trying to overcome those childhood issues that he has. So I think that we need it as a culture and a society. We cannot say that, yes, this is what we should be doing. And I want people to know, at no point can you just go off and do this. Like a lot of people say, no.
Time out, but here's the thing. Look, let's act like we didn't grow. Look, I don't know where a lot of folks are from. Let me just tell y'all something. I'm from Baltimore. Baltimore, if you're from certain neighborhoods, that's what's, I mean, and I know that we want to all be in a better place. That's why I said this at the beginning, that we should have violence prevention programs should be filled up to the rafters at this point, because there is a disconnect. We got all that talk on social media, but when you are out in the streets and everybody say, well, that's West Philly pulling out, or that's Brooklyn, responding because of Chris and where Chris and Will are from. But there's still a disconnect. Like, we could be talking about not being violent, and we should. Violence is not the answer. But there's somewhere along the line that is a part of our culture. We teach Black boys that in order for you to be considered a man, that you got to smack somebody in the mouth. My wife works at a school, and and she teaches 3rd grade. And that's how those Black boys, 9 and 10 years old, that's how they are growing up. They smacking each other in the face, and she got to stop that, and she got to reprogram them, because that's not something. Oh, Will Smith ain't teach violence on black on violence on black. That is something that we have not only embraced, but we have personified that level of violence on each other.
This goes back to Lisa's point about trauma. Like it screams trauma. Yes, in our culture and where we're from, it's about respect. And if you say this about my mother, say this about my father, whoever it may be, they'll put hands on you. Yes, that is a part of our culture. Yes, I grew up that way. Yes, is certain things you don't say, or at least prepare for retaliation if you do say it. That is very true. But however, it's still a traumatic response. Like you said during Will's speech, he says he felt as though he has to protect his family, because I'm not saying this, but it could be a connection to him not being able to protect his mother from getting beat on. So but it all leads back to trauma, Farajii.
No, that's what I'm
look. Response.
Look, Iman. I'm saying that is not far-fetched. We carry trauma, we carry certain memories, right? If a boy feels like that as a boy,
and then
he might become a hero. By the time he becomes a man,
a hero, Farajii. It was his chest, stick out his chest and be a hero, Farajii.
It could be. And look. I'm not a psychologist, and I'm certainly not a therapist. Right? I'm a talk show host. But I'm just saying that's not far-fetched. There is a connection to that. There is a very, very real connection to that. Let me just share with you what people are saying. And people, and look, and I mean, look, if this again, if we look at the culture of violence, I know a sister just said to me, stop glorifying violence as your culture. That's Afari. I hope this is not about glorifying the violence. This is about acknowledging that we do, as Black people, as Black boys become Black men and Black girls become Black women, we grow up in a culture of violence. It's not about glorifying it. This is acknowledging.
Started due to violence.
Right. I mean, Americans
out there too. This whole America thing started from violence. It was bred and created through violence. Let's not forget that part as well. Like, let's not be those who say, "Oh no, violence isn't dance." This whole thing started from violence. Right?
This whole thing started. Let me just share it. Go ahead. Okay. Well, give me one moment, please. Don said, in Oakland, you're going to catch hands if you talk about somebody's family. That's what she said. She said, in Oakland, you're going to catch hands.
Right.
Look, Janae said, but let me restate this: pride, mindfulness, wellness, growth, strength. I really think Chris had mad love for the Smiths to see the hit coming and take it. That's what Janae said. Yeah. B. Simmons says, don't matter what he's thinking, everyone is going through something. When you are a public figure, everything is fair game.
I think there should be some limits on. Of course,
There
they're
should be some
humans too. They're humans, so they get hurt and they get sad too. And I think we look at them as they're above it because we glorify celebrity. We worship them. Really, they became the new monarchy since we don't really have one. But I think that again, going back to some of those comments, who has the right to slap? Because let's look at somebody like Magic Johnson. People have been making fun of him for having HIV for years. People talked about his wife. People talked about his son. People talked about Magic Johnson. At no point did I ever see him publicly hit anyone. I think we do live in a society, of course, America, we are violent. We love guns. We love violence. That's what we do. It was founded on that. But again, we can't keep saying that we want to be better, but this is who we are. Either we're going to try to take steps to change it, or this is who we are. Like you can't have it both ways. It's either one or the other. But I do agree that it's not just about glorifying it. But again, when people say that, it is about acknowledging that this is where we're at. And this is why a lot of our cities and stuff are where they are, because we believe that this is, if somebody says something about you, you are entitled to hurt them. And that's not the case. And I think that no one checked on Chris Rock. No one said anything about Chris Rock, but
that's not true. That's not true. Denzel checked on him and others have checked on Chris Rock. That's a happen.
Not in the same vein of Will Smith. Like seems like there was fewer people who did. Yeah. And I think that Chris Rock, he didn't hit him back, and he could have. He did ball his fist up. I seen that, but he did not hit him back, and he didn't press charges. He said he wouldn't. And I think that says a lot about it, whether or not he misjudged it. Because I don't know if you guys remember, he was on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, that's back in the 90s. But look, if you want, and I agree with you on that point, Lise, I think that speaks volumes. But there's another part of our culture within the Black community that if you said something slick out somebody's mouth and then somebody gave you the consequences, you're not going to run to the police. Because then the respect level really falls down.
I'm not saying he should have, and I'm not saying, because we got to get rid of these standards and checkpoints that this is how Blackness is, and this is what, because it excludes so many people from Blackness. And I'm like, we can't have that. Every Black person is not less Black if you don't feel that way. Every Black person should be included in that. But I want also to know that when we're talking about all of this stuff with hitting and not hitting and who was right and who was wrong, we lose the fact that in the end of the day, the conversation that should have been had Will Smith had enough restraint, because Chris Rock is almost 60, so he's probably not going to be sitting here throwing hands. We would have been having the conversation that maybe Chris Rock's joke was wrong. How should comedians talk to people? And then about Black women not being protected and alopecia. And Will Smith would have not have been the bad guy. It would have flipped on Chris Rock. People would have been looking at him had he had just a tad bit more restraint.
Oh, people are still doing that though.
But still, it goes back to the slap. We have, if you look at the hashtag.
I mean, look, because it's going to always go back to the slap because of the person who did it and how it was done, right, and where it was done. So it's going to always go back to the slap. So Chris, I mean, social media. Some people say Chris was wrong. Some people say Chris was right. You know what I mean? And when you're talking about, I had a comedian last night, Larry Lancaster. He was on, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, there should be limits, but it really comes down to the comedian." You know what I mean? Because every comedian, if you ever go to a comedy show, and let me tell you a person that does this religiously, and he's really great at it. D.L. Hughley. Mm-hmm. If you ever gone to a D.L. Hughley show and watch his show, he will go 20 minutes unscripted off of somebody he sees in the audience, right? Now, if they get really upset, I mean, of course you're laughing and you're joking, but he will say some stuff that will make you say, damn, man, like if you weren't a comedian, we were out in the street, you probably get hit for that, right? Like, I mean, come on, be for real, right? So it's really up to the comedian, Chris Rock, and I think that's the other part of this conversation, that there is, and I want you to, I want to go, Keenan, there is a piece that was put out, and I want us to show this, the quote from CNN where they said, yeah, that one. This is an opinion piece by Peniel Joseph. And a piece was called Will Smith's Wrongs Don't Make Chris Rock's Right. He said, in a sense, Will Smith and Chris Rock found themselves in front of a global audience enacting dual sides of American exceptionalism. Chris Rock, backed by freedom of expression, can lob rhetorical jabs against Jada Pinkett Smith and claim protection by saying he was joking. In that instance, for Will and Jada Smith, it was no joke, but a kind of bullying that marginalized groups, particularly Black women, have all experienced at some moment. It does not excuse Smith's subsequent actions, but contextualizes them. So when a comedian says certain things, and you have a Black comedian saying something about a Black woman, some people will see that as a violation. It's not just a joke, because Black women are often the butt of jokes. So when those things are coming up, like, yes, you can say, oh, he has the comedic license, but does he really have the comedic license?
But Will laughed. But even Will laughed after the joke.
No, but I don't know. And see, here's the thing. Here's the thing about. Wait a minute. Hold on. Here's the thing about, and I'm just saying that I want us, and I'm bringing these details up because I want us to see it. He was laughing at the first joke prior to the joke about Jada. Then when he started, wait a minute. But hold on, Iman. When he started to say the joke about Jada, you saw her eyes rolling, and then his laughed. You know, he was kind of smiling, but then guess what? The camera went to Chris, and then all of a sudden you got the shot of Will walking up on stage. We don't know what happened.
We don't know what happened.
We don't know what happened.
Then, he was saying G.I. Jane joke. Will Smith was actively laughing. He wasn't coming down from a laugh.
I mean, look at the video.
Off a laugh. See,
look at this video. If you look at the video, and I'm not looking invested, her eyes roll. He's kind of laughing. Then we'll see what happened. Then
but
what?
I mean, when it comes to comedians,
he goes back to it, and nothing.
We do. When it comes to comedians, though, I think we do tote a very fine line of who gets to say what and what person and how much. Even when you talk about that, what they just posted, it's similar to what the therapist told me. Your trauma doesn't give you an excuse to hurt me. We also don't know the trauma that Chris Rock, maybe that trauma from his childhood, him being bullied, is why he made the joke he made. We can flip this a million ways to Sunday. Plus, he also has a learning disability that people aren't talking about, that he can't recognize emotion like the rest of us. Yeah. We're not talking about that either. Look, so we can flip this a million ways to Sunday.
Lisa, nobody got no time to be doing no assessment. No psychological. Look, folks. Let's keep it. Let's put it with a ghost.
We need psychological evaluation.
Wait, we can't do no psychological evaluation. That's what I'm saying. It gets so deep. It gets so much, right? That you could be like, yeah, I mean, but what was his mindset? What was his going on? I don't know. We don't know, and we will probably never know that.
Hold on, pause.
But it was an emotional moment.
As a Black man, Farajii.
Yeah.
If Nira is in that situation and you are Will Smith in your suit looking good, dressed down,
which I always do. Go ahead.
Brother. I know this.
They at the Emmys. You at the Emmys.
You at the Emmys, okay? And Chris Rock or whomever is saying what they saying about women, let's say whatever condition, if Nira has a condition, that situation, right?
Right.
He makes a joke. And you're laughing, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. You look over and see that your wife is emotionally upset. And we know Nira's facial expression, she can't hide nothing.
Can't hide nothing. Worst poker face ever. Gotcha.
Worse. So in that moment, let's mix up your childhood upbringing and where you're from and traumas. How would you have handled that?
I wouldn't have done it. Look, let me tell you, I wouldn't have stepped up on stage because one, I don't have the status of a Will Smith. So for me to step up,
I'm saying if you did have the
if I did have I wouldn't have dealt with it like that. And look, let me just tell you, I know what the brother was doing was wrong. I mean, it was wrong, right? It was an emotional response. That was it. It was an emotional response. Will Smith has been majority, and I would say for a large part of his career, has been this squeaky clean type of guy.
Mm-hmm. And
You know what I mean? That's why a lot of people
awesome.
have fallen in love with him. That's why he is seen and is respected. Not only is he squeaky clean, he went from hip hop to television to the movies, and along the way, he's added something to Black arts and culture, right? Along the way, right? So we all recognize that. So the fact is, he was able to do that and not to be not suffer the consequences of getting arrested, being removed from the place. We all know that because of who he is and what he has done. So that certainly plays a huge part of this. But when I'm looking at it, no, I wouldn't have handled it that way. I wouldn't. Now, would I have said something to Chris afterwards? Yeah. Yes.
That's
Do you
exactly
feel
what
like
Chris,
Smith
like, bro,
only put his
that
hands
wasn't
on
cool.
Chris because he felt like Chris would? Okay. Do you?
But see,
think
look,
that
here's again. If that's just how I think, again, that's an emotional space. Whatever his mindset was in, that was his mindset. But that's the choice that he made at an emotional moment. And I think that's the other thing we just got to remember. Here's the last thing, folks, because I know we got to wrap it up. The question becomes, do we take the award away? Now, here's what Whoopi Goldberg says. She's one of the she's the governor for the Academy. And some people are actually calling for his award, for his Oscar to be revoked. Let me just make this very clear. I think he earned that Oscar for King Richard. I think that anything after, like from this point forward, he can suffer the consequences. But legitimately, nobody knew that this was going to happen. So he should keep the award because the award was not based on him showing up at the Oscars. The award was about his performance in King Richard.
Right. So there's no connection. Like it is. He got the award for his work, not because of good behavior, because of his work. So just because he didn't have an emotional response at the awards, that shouldn't take away anything from his work. Let's not forget the Oscars is from his work, not his good behavior.
Right. The Oscar, and look, and we know, and let's not talk about the ongoing culture that you can be great on screen, you could be great on the field, and be a terrible human being in real life. And you're still going to be rewarded. We had a conversation on this show about Deshaun Watson, the newly signed up quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, $200+ million contract, but you got 22 lawsuits against you from women who say that you sexually violated them, that you were sexually inappropriate with them. 22. I don't think that, but guess what? The NFL rewarded him for his talent, not for his personality, his moral character, no, that's how America works. And so it's easy for us to have a conversation and try to say, well, we can separate the artist, the talent from the human being. I personally don't believe that. I think there's all that comes in one package. So if I do something crazy in public, you can't be like, well, he's a great host. Well, I'm a great host, but if I do a crappy thing in public, if I abuse somebody, if I violate the law, that all comes with me.
Right.
I agree.
At the Oscars, at that moment, that was from his work. It's not like the Kevin Hart situation where
I agree with
Kevin
that.
Hart tweeted about the LGBTQ community and then they became upset and then it's okay, we got to do something about it. But that was prior to the show. Like, he was getting his award that night that it happened. So it's not like, all right, guys, let's revote because
they're not gonna revote.
No, now here's what Whoopi have to say. Here's what Whoopi have to say. Hey, Keenan, let's play that video, brother.
Somebody it was like shocking, frankly. It was shocking.
Well, hitting somebody is a crime, right? It is the crime of assault on national TV. Look, at first I thought it was a joke. I think a lot of us thought this has got to be a comedy bit because this cannot possibly be happening on the live telecast of the Oscars.
I just think, it was a lot of stuff probably built up. Because 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 brought a lot of jokes. Some of them really low, some of them okay, I think he overreacted.
Wait, I'm sorry, I'm not following you. When was
jokes about their marriage?
Jokes about their marriage, jokes about them.
Oh.
And
So what Whippy is saying is like, and if you go back, folks, Chris Rock has been making jokes about their marriage from 2016 all the way up to this point. You know, Chris Rock has always been he's been one of the few black hosts of the Oscars. And every time the Oscars come up, you know, there's always like this little joke that he makes about Jada. It could have been from that, you know, to speaking of trauma.
That's because they didn't come. So remember, Oscar's so white.
Right,
they didn't
right, but that's what I'm saying. Like it could have been that's what I think Whoopi is making a point, saying that it could have just been a build-up because Chris Rock was like, oh, Jada and Will are thinking that Oscar's so white. And see, that was a legitimate stand. And some people might say, well, Chris, black people and black artists aren't being respected by the Academy and aren't being respected about the institution. Well, why aren't you standing with us?
He did.
Why are you still hosting? Why are you still hosting? Why aren't you protesting?
My man, Chris, because Chris Rock's my favorite comedian of all time. He did. And as a matter of fact, if anybody's hypocritical, wouldn't it be Will and Jada? Like the Oscars last year, no black people were nominated for major awards, but yet you came when you were? Who is really
No. Well, this year, Will Packer was the producer. So there was a different production level and a different production team, and there's a different.
That's besides the point. The Oscars
oh, wait a minute, hold on, Lise. Was it at the time? And I don't remember what Will Smith's movie was back in 2016. Or like I know he was talking. I think he was like the
Concussion movie, the one
Concussion. That's what it was, Concussion, and then he was filming Collateral Beauty, I believe it was. But Concussion, so that didn't go up for an Oscar, but it was like, I mean, everybody was kind of like trying to figure out where we stand with the Academy at that point, right? Even now, Oscar So White is still very real.
Yeah, but yet they came when he was nominated, when it was convenient. I think we can't pick and choose who is the victim and who isn't, because it seems like we want to protect black women sometimes, but when it came to trans black women, when we talking about comedians with Dave Chappelle, everybody was on board with him talking about them. No one stood up for them. So I'm like, are we really as a culture protecting black women? Who gets included, who gets excluded? I think we need to stay away from he was right. Let's just say they both were wrong. And we can admit that both parties need to apologize, and then that we need to change the culture that violence should not be the go-to.
Everybody go to therapy. Just
everybody.
Well, you know what?
Everybody go to therapy.
Let me just put this out there, and then we're going to take a quick pause after this because this actually leads into our next conversation. But there was a writer by the name of, well, let's put it up there. This is a woman who wrote this book, a black woman. She wrote this op-ed piece called "America is Still Stuck on Stupid," and it was an op-ed for the Washington Post. And I want, if we could post that, Kenan. Let me just share with you what she said, and I think this kind of helps to give us some context of why this situation always seems to be happening. This is what she said, and this is coming from, I think her name is, let me make sure I have her name correctly, Karen Attila. Yeah, Karen Attila. She said, quote, "It is simply our social reality that black women are the butt of endless cultural jokes, that we experience high levels of online abuse and domestic violence." Take a look at this. I'm going to start this again. This is from Karen Attila from the Washington Post. "It is simply our social reality that black women are the butt of endless cultural jokes, that we experience high levels of online abuse and domestic violence. Plus, a black woman who forcefully defends herself will earn the label aggressive for her efforts, especially in white spaces. These labelers are the same folks who will watch a black woman being demeaned and later praise her restraint, or worse yet, her discomfort will be made into a meme." That's where we are. And and I think that is the ugly part about this situation, that black women, you sisters, and all of the women and all the black women watching us today are constantly being the butt of endless jokes and abuse. And I think that's what struck home. And I'm not saying that much struck home for Will, but I know that struck home for me. To watch that, you just like, come on, bro, you don't have to make fun of your sister. on national TV when she got a condition, that's crossing the line, bro. And I get it. G.I. Jane, she's a woman of strength and you know what I mean? She played that, and I get it, but it was just a bad joke. It was a bad joke. And then you could tell by the audience, it didn't land too well. You don't think the audience of actors and industry professionals don't remember G.I. Jane?
I feel
Black
like
women
if
are
we
always
knew,
the butt of jokes.
we didn't know that she had alopecia. Like
Right.
I feel like
I did. There are a lot of people that knew. No, I think people.
didn't. So I didn't find the joke offensive. I think it really is the lack of knowledge. If people would have known she had alopecia, stuff from alopecia, it'd be more of a crisp. You're wrong, 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 wrong. But people didn't even know there was an issue she had. We didn't know.
She talked about this, and she's had this issue since 2018.
Yeah, but I think
it's 2022. I still didn't know. That's
Right.
the problem.
Agenda fan, I think you'll know. But I think had Will Smith not done what he did, emotion or no emotion, because this is not the first time he's been talked about. He had to sit down and go through all of that through the whole entanglement situation. We've seen him be able to not do something like that. So had he not done that, we would have had that conversation. And I think if we would have looked at Chris like, hey, Chris, bro, you wrong. But because of what Will did, what he did, it changed the circumstance. And now we're not having that conversation. We're having arguments about whether you team Will or team Chris.
Yeah, I'm not having those arguments either. That's why I said after today, I'm done with it. But let me just say that I do understand, because of the woman that I'm betrothed to, and because of the sisters that I talk to, like you sisters and others, you don't make jokes about a woman's hair, which is her crown. You certainly don't make her the butt of jokes. You know what I mean? Like just as much as your mother is off limits in the situation, black women is off limits. The physical, you don't make jokes about a black woman's physical looks. You don't make jokes about, what a black woman's pain and struggle. None of that shit is funny. None of that shit is funny. This is 2022. None of it's funny. You know what I'm saying? Like you could talk about a lot of other things, talk about something else, but don't continue to make the black woman the butt of the jokes. And that's all I say. I'm not saying, again, I don't think Will's handled it correctly, but I understand. Trust and believe. I understand. I definitely understand. All right, look, I got to take a final break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about a new study that talks about how black girls are often seen as being older and more sexual than their counterparts. Let's talk a little bit about this new report. We'll get the Culture Crew's insight on that, and stay with us. A lot to come at you for the final few minutes of today's show here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, as we continue to talk about, and I'm sure this will be a ongoing conversation about all of the underlying dynamics between Will Smith and Chris Rock. I wanted to make sure that we understand that there is a very prevalent culture that includes our Black girls that we need to consider for these type of conversations. There was a new study that was just recently done. The report is called Girlhood Interrupted: The Erasure of Black Girls' Childhood. I want you to check this out, folks. Girlhood Interrupted: The Erasure of Black Girls' Childhood. This is a study that was published by the Georgetown Center on Poverty and Inequality. It's the first of its kind to detail how adults perceive Black girls to be, quote unquote, less innocent and more adult-like than their white peers. This is according to the researchers of this report. And the team of researchers included Georgetown Law, Texas A&M University, and Occidental College. They said that this could lead to fewer development opportunities for Black girls to take advantage of in school. And this is the big thing about this report, folks. It says that it determined that Black girls, particularly between the ages of 5 and 14, check this out, 5 and 14, many of you might have daughters, granddaughters, nieces or nephews, girls that you mentor in your neighborhood and in your community. But between the ages of 5 and 14 are believed to be more independent and to require less care in the way of support, nurturing, and protection. Now, I'm going to just let y'all know that I certainly want to continue to have the conversation about this report and this whole dilemma. But I wanted to start it off with my dynamic panelists today to get their thoughts on this idea that girls between the ages of 5 and 14 are seen as less, are seen to be more independent and less in need of care, protection, and nurturing. Lise and Iman, I'm going to start with you with this one. Does this report resonate with you?
Absolutely. I'll say due to our culture, and I won't say my upbringing was bad. I had my childhood was fine, but at the age of 9, I started staying home by myself. At the age of 11, I started babysitting my younger brother. I'll say I was a latchkey kid, but that's only because I got out of school before my mother got off from work. So it's just, I had to learn how to cook, not make macaroni and cheese and full course meals, but heat up some chicken nuggets or make some oodles and noodles to feed myself while mother was at work. I definitely think it all depends upon our culture. Young Black women, we sometimes have to be the second head of the household. If you have siblings or cousins and we all live in one home and the adults are away working, the next oldest in charge, that's who ran the house while everyone was gone. So it depends on the position that we have to play as young Black women. And some of us do have to grow up faster than others. Then to thinking about how some younger women are molested, how that can just speed up you having to grow up or mature due to that experience. So it's a lot of factors go into it. But just because we go through these experiences or we have expressed these experiences doesn't mean we should get or receive less love or support because we look like we're so strong and we're so mature and we can handle so much, when in reality, some of us, we can't. But that statement is very true.
The other part about this, Lise, and I think that it speaks to this, the report speaks to this, the over-sexualization of Black girls, that Black girls are exposed to sexual talk, exposed to, examples of sexuality sometimes too early. And it causes some Black girls between the age of 5 and 14 to express sexuality that where people are starting to look at them like adults.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. And I think that I don't know if I didn't read the full research report, but Black girls and I would say brown girls experience sexual assault at a really devastating rate. And it's unfortunate that people are sexualizing these children. And when we're not just looking at the things that they're exposed to and how, as a culture, when we're talking about culture, we don't protect these girls. And a lot of times, like Iman said, you're right. The sisters, they're the oldest, they're the ones that become these second mothers. And if there's no second parent in the home, they are almost like raising these children. I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen that happen. And you see the things that they're looking at, and they're trying to be like these images that they see because that's what is being rewarded. Yeah. And so it scares me as a mother. I have 3 children. I have 3 daughters. And so when I see stuff like this is a scary thing to think that when people look at my children, they're taller. And so they automatically think that they're older and they treat them older. And it is so unfortunate that Black girls can't be vulnerable. Neither can Black women. And that's why the strong Black woman narrative is a backhanded compliment, because it takes away the vulnerability of Black women. You can't be vulnerable, and it makes you not worthy of having those moments to be human.
And then we have to have, just to piggyback off Elise really quickly about being sexualized. Some young females have that talk about sex and what sex is at a young age due to the mother's fear of her becoming pregnant at an early or young age. A lot of young ladies get their menstrual cycle starting in as far as I've known, 4th grade. So they have to have those conversations because a baby is real. And we're the ones who carry the baby, not the male. So they may not have had the conversation quite yet, but for some women, especially for mothers, I know my mother's mother beat it in my head, don't have kids due to, just history of how things have gone on in our family. So it's a lot of variables to this, but mainly young women and being able to get pregnant at such a young age. We want to prevent that as much as possible.
Yeah, and I think that is the part of, I think there are a couple of things at place here, ladies, that one is the culture. When I say the culture, I mean, and you said it at the beginning of the show, Iman, that we are the culture, and I hope people understand and really internalize how powerful that message is, because I say it too. We are the culture. Nobody outside of our community, outside of our household, outside of us determines how we go about interacting and engaging with one another. Nobody does that, right? We determine that. We determine the relationships that we have, how those relationships are going to go or not going to go. We set the boundaries within our community, right? Because, for example, I mean, if you are looking at Black girls from 5 to 14 in a way that's sexual, or looking at them from an adult lens, right? Oh, they know what they're doing. They could take care of themselves, right? There's the little things. Oh, they strong. They're independent. That's what Black girls do. Like, when do they have the time to grow up? And I say this all the time about children, because I want to push back on, in our culture, in our community, we look at children, by the time they get to be 8, 9 years old, we ready for them to start paying bills, right? And it's like at a certain point, when do we allow children to just be children? We get mad when children do children things. Like, I even have to stop myself when my son does something real childish. I'll be like, the boy is 8. You know what I mean? I'm talking to myself like, he 8. When my 2-year-old daughter spills something, and I'm wondering, well, why didn't you just go and pick up a paper towel?
That little baby is smart. Now Farajii, I got a little eyebrows on her hands. That's as smart as
I mean, that's fine. But see, my thing is not to rob them of their innocence as children, not to give them the space to be children, right? And we you talking, we talked about this in the last segment with Jada and Will about trauma. That's trauma that's been passed on, I believe, from generation to generation. You know what I mean? It's traumatic to find out that, for example, and I know this without a shadow of a doubt, when your parents use your name on a bill to get something, by the time you 18, you like, oh, okay, I'm gonna start the world. I'm gonna get my own credit card. You already got a credit history by 18.
Negative credit
history.
And then to add,
that's trauma. That's traumatic. And then when you, Iman, at least y'all know, when you approach your parents about it, they really don't have no good thing to say. They get
mad at you.
Right. Well, why are you looking in my finances?
I'm gonna go ahead and say, I didn't have that problem, y'all. I don't know what y'all talking about.
Look, you may not have had that problem, but
she's too young.
No, yeah, she too. But I'm just saying, I'm just saying that we put so much on our children because of the pain that obviously that we have gone through, or we're all in the name of trying to prepare our children for the real world. Preparing your childhood is a part of the development of a child to become an adult.
But
they
how about
need
something she
childhood.
can't help? Some things you can't help. As far as like young ladies, we can get hippie and busty at younger ages.
Right.
In particular, middle school is screaming to me because I was one of the later developed ones. Everybody around here looking all grown. I'm still looking like a kid, but because I'm a kid, duh. But it's physically we are hippier. We have a little more going on in the back sometimes at younger ages due to hormones. So even something physical, it's like she looking at a younger lady, she can't help it. And it's like to look at that as her being older, she looks older. She looks that way due to something on the inside she can't control. That's she can't help
Let me speak from experience. My daughter went through puberty at 8. So she started her menstrual cycle at 8 years old. Wow. And so my children grow faster because when you go through puberty, you grow and then it levels off. So my children look older than they are. And sometimes I have to stop myself, like you said, Farajii, from saying, okay, well, like, wait, she's only 9. So those are the things that I get society when you're looking from the outside in, but this is why we do need to protect our children, because you're right, they do deserve to have a childhood. Although she might be developing a little bit faster than other people, she still deserves to. If you want to play with dolls, play with dolls. But we also have to know that we should be talking about sex to our children sooner, because they will understand that if a man says this to you, that is not okay. If somebody touches you, that is not okay. As the Black community, I think when we're talking about sex, we don't talk about it in a way where it's informative, because we're uncomfortable with those conversations. So I think that we do need to have those conversations with our children, not to sexualize them, but to inform them of what is going to happen and what their surroundings could be.
And not just females, males too.
Oh, no doubt.
Across a lot of older men who were molested and touched at a younger age and refuse to speak about it because as a man, it's the macho thing, to get women, but not as no child. That's not okay at all. So we have to express this to men, younger boys as well. If someone says this to you, it's not okay. If someone touches you this way, it's not okay. It goes both ways, not just females.
Let me tell you something. I had that conversation with my son very early on, years ago. I said, look, you have your private areas. Nobody touches that except for who? He's like, me, daddy. Not even your daddy. Not even your mommy. You know what I'm saying? Like once you get to a certain age,
right?
That's for you.
Right.
And I think, and to your point, Lise, that we do need to have those conversations, right? But we still have to have those conversations in a way that they can relate to. There are plenty of books. We got books here, for example, that talks about body parts, that talks about all of those little things. That way a child can understand, and not just understand, but they can have pride in being who they are, right? And know that, okay, if I'm a boy, I have one thing. If I'm a girl, I have something else. And learning how to respect the difference between the two. So I think that's certainly a big, strong point. Annie B checked in and said, look, a 5-year-old child is a quote unquote child. And if a man or anybody else looks at her in a sexual way, that person has an issue, not the child. Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree. Here's the thing, though. And this is not to go into no deep, long conversation, because this could be deep. But you got to make that known to your family, because generally, when you look at the statistics, when sexual abuse happens, it happens by people who know the child. It's not by strangers. It's about that. It's about either somebody right there in the family. So that boundary has to be set. And I'm glad you bring that up, Annie. That boundary has to be set by the family. Now, the other thing is, and we're not going to have too much time to get into it, but The report also notes that the impression of Black girls are as less innocent may lead to harsher punishment from school officials. They're finding that, for example, between 2013 to 2014 school year, Black girls were found to be suspended from school at a disproportionate rate, while making up 8% of students enrolled in K through 12 public schools. They represented 13% of students who faced one or more out-of-school suspensions, according to the report. So not only are you seen differently, you are penalized more harsher than white children in schools, right? And that's another space that we will have to, and this is a part of, and I think, Iman, this is a part of the whole protection piece, that if your daughters or your grandchild or your niece, if that little girl goes to school, that she has to feel like daddy, mommy, auntie, uncle, granddad is going to protect her when she's in front of the principal. When the teacher says she does something, you have to speak up for that little girl. Iman, what's your take on that very quickly?
If I could get off mute, I agree. I certainly agree. I would say being in a position as the female who I had to speak up for myself, because when I got phone calls home, my mother didn't believe me. She always believed what the teacher had to say. So in a sense, it's we got to teach them early, learn early. I didn't go through anything, sexually at school, anything like that, but I'm saying we got to teach them to protect themselves earlier. Yes, keep them a child. Yes, don't expose them too much too early. But we gotta talk about it early. It has to be talked about early.
It does got to be talked about early, and nobody gave us a handbook for this. Lise, you got the final word on this. What's your take on the harsher penalties?
And I think it's because we do a lot of that. They're so grown. We in our culture, that's cute. Oh, they're so grown. And so we don't want that, because when people see them and they're talking, like, even though the way they talk should not impact how the school reacts to them at all. But if you have a society that's looking at these children as older, you know that it's going to lead to something. We have to do something, not only just educating the teachers, we have to educate the school system. And we also have to make sure that we normalize it's okay for your child to continue to be a child, especially in the Black community, and understand that the child should not raise themselves. They did not bring themselves into this world. It is your responsibility to raise your child and not them to raise themselves. And so at the end of the day, we do need to make sure that we are following up with our schools, because this is not something that should continue.
Absolutely not. Ladies, it's always a pleasure to have both of you on. I really enjoy having Tuesday conversations. I leave certain discussions just for y'all to y'all. I want y'all to know that. I want y'all to know that. So I appreciate you, Iman Heath, who is an activist. She's an entrepreneur doing some great things throughout the city. Thank you so much. And Lise Winnie, you can check out her podcast, Millennials Anonymous. Lise, where can they find your podcast at, for those who don't know?
Wherever you like to get your podcast. I'm everywhere, like Red Hot. You can get it on anything. I'm everywhere.
There you
and
go.
Put a Z on it. You got to put a Z on it, though.
Millennials. Excuse me. I don't want to make sure I mess it up. Millennials, that's that Baltimore drawl ending. Ladies, thank you so much for being on the show. And certainly thank you so much for being so good for the culture. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, I want to thank all of you for being a part of the conversations. Look, again, we still got a lot to deal with. So I hope that we did our due justice around the conversation with Will Smith and Chris Rock. Still, there are going to be a number of other things that continue to be spoken of from that moment. But just know that there are some big things, there are some small things, and then there are some other things that we need to discuss. So we still got, we're juggling. We're juggling a lot here, but we appreciate you tuning in. Yesterday, we had an incredible number of viewers and watchers, not just for the culture, but also for Roland Martin Unfiltered. And we truly, truly appreciate the support for Black Star Network, because it is your support that keeps this thing going. It is your support that makes us have the testicular fortitude to speak the way we need to speak. And of course, to keep it unfiltered, unapologetically Black. So we need your support. BlackStarNetwork.com. We want you to support Black-owned media through various platforms: Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle. And we need your support. Every cent counts, every dollar counts. But even if you can't give at this point, please watch, share with your family, tell them to download the link for absolutely free. And that is just as important to us as your financial donation. So blackstarnetwork.com. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned. Up next at the 6 o'clock hour is my big brother, Roland Martin, Unfiltered. And I appreciate you all for joining me for the conversation. If you want to follow me on a social media platform, it's right there. There it is. You can do so. And let's continue to have the important conversations. And most importantly, let's continue to think about ways that we can improve our culture and not just do things for the culture. All right. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong, stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.